that's my run. And there's like 1, 2, 3, 4.5 coops attached to it. So the best chicken litter, like coop or run, is the kind of litter that A, keeps your birds healthy, and B, that works for you financially, work-wise, supply-wise, daily chore-wise, aesthetic-wise, you know, many variables. And so for me, the only thing that works for me is true deep litter. And here's some of the reasons why. I would absolutely not do the required pick your poop up every day, or at the very least every other day. I don't want to install dropping boards underneath every single roost. That's just not ever gonna happen. My run is covered, but it's not 100%, so it does get moist in there. And sand is supposed to stay dry all the time. It can get hard. Also, sand, if you get the wrong sand, you're in deep trouble. It has to be the coarse type of river sand, and you can't even believe the people that you get it from. You have to go there and get it. It's incredibly heavy. And then you have to change it once a year. And one thing I have read recommended, you just let it be out in the element and, for a year. And then before you put it back in and change it back out the next year, you got to use a flamethrower to kill all the germs in it, because it doesn't compost. It never has good bacteria in it, good organisms. And so also my coop is stationary, and it's on soil, which for deep litter is like the absolute best. It just works the best. But you can't have soil and then put sand over it, because the moisture from the soil will get into the sand, and then the sand gets wet, and sand litter needs to stay dry. And so there, you can call me lazy or whatever. I don't like the cost. I don't like to have to shovel it in and pay for it. And the leaves are free. Sometimes I put some organic straw in here if I have it. But another thing, sand cannot be composted. This stuff, I take out so much for my raised beds every year. It's great. And the other thing is, it's actually warm when it's working properly. I'm digging in here a little bit, and it's like warm to the touch. I mean, it's like amazing. That's deep litter for you. And that's deep litter when it's actually composting, it's warm. Now you could say, well, that could be a disadvantage in the summer. Maybe. Except in the summer, it is so dry here that it doesn't actually compost all that well. It's just dry. But that makes it dusty. But so sand is kind of dusty too, or can be. But that's like, okay, I'm going to have to deal with the dust. Regarding flies, I have no idea why I basically don't have flies in this coop. There are flies sometimes, like out here. Whenever there's poop that's exposed. So unless you pick up the poop every day in your sand litter, you're still gonna have flies. What else? Oh, the drainage, the good old drainage. Now, if you have ground floor, like a dirt floor, you don't actually want things to drain into the ground. You want it to be, whatever the chickens poop out, to be contained in the litter so you can actually, compost it and eventually remove it. If you just have sand on ground and everything goes right through the sand into the ground, that's eventually going to contaminate your soil. It's just a matter of time. Now, if I only had like 6 chickens or 8 chickens and a 10 by 10 coop, would I consider sand? No, I wouldn't, because I do not want to go in there every day to pick up all the poop. I'm just not going to do it. I know myself well enough. That's not an option. I would still have deep litter, even if it's a wood floor. I put linoleum over it. I pull it up on the sides, like make an actual litter box, and I'll show you what that looks like. It's litter, so it needs a box. All around there's like this box. And I pretty much have that there. And I have it back there too. So you can see it's pretty rustic. And back there it's at least it's like a foot high. Over here it's only the 6 inches. And that is probably like 8 inches, maybe 10 inches. And you can see it's more built up there than here, because this coop actually flooded one year. And I'm like, what the heck? And I needed to really work on raising the litter. And oh yes, you see that kerfuffle? When you do this, it's soft. I like my chickens landing on soft. Like even when I walk here, it's soft. And I don't know, if you have 3 inches of sand, I don't know how soft that is. Also, people say that, oh, sand is a natural material. You find it in the rivers. And yeah, you find it in the rivers, but chickens don't live in the rivers. They live in the forest. And in the forest, there are leaves and there's dirt. And that is actually natural flooring for them, not sand. I mean, where in the forest do you ever have a sand? Nowhere. You have river sand. And that's just not litter. But, so anyway, I was rambling on. I was giving you my impression why, for me, deep litter is the thing to do. Now, there's one more reason. These were studies that were done in the 1940s. And they were studying deep litter, and they were comparing the broiler performance and growth versus feed ration and health and coccidia and death rates of fresh litter versus old litter. And what they found is that after litter is about 6 months old, there is such health benefits in having deep litter compared to fresh litter that they started recommending their chicken keepers to never take out all the deep litter, always leave at least 6 inches. The incidence of coccidia was vastly decreased on deep litter that was old compared to the fresh one. So something happens that is beneficial. Also, because of the microorganisms in the deep litter, they found that the vitamin B, and I can't remember if it was vitamin B12, but it was the vitamin B, it was increased because the bacteria were producing it. And it actually, and then there were like 2 other non-specific nutritional factors that they couldn't figure out what it was, that the chickens that were kept on the old litter were just doing better. And so with deep litter, in some kind of a strange way, you're not supposed to clean it out. You're supposed to leave 6 inches all the time and just, make sure it's aerated, you have good ventilation, you add new brown stuff. In my case, it's leaves. I don't remember what they were using. I think they were using straw. And anyway, that's where I'm at with the deep litter and the sand litter. It's a no-brainer for me. Now, if you love sand and you like that coop to be like that coffee table type look, and you're totally into, going with your scooper and cleaning it out every day, and it looks so wonderful and pretty and not rustic like this, which is built with all mostly reused found materials. Well, I'd say I think that's great. It does look better what I see in some of the pictures. But that doesn't mean the chickens are healthier or happier, or that it is more natural. But if it works for you, then that's great. And if it works for the health of your chickens, that is really where it's at. The best litter at the end of the day is the litter your chickens stay healthy with. If they die of coccidiosis and you have to keep treating them with this stuff for it, that's not, then sorry, it doesn't have to be that way. Okay? Now, regarding coccidia, deep litter, as I said, is protective when chicks get exposed to it early on. Also, coccidia, not all soils have the same coccidia. I think there were 7 or so that affect chickens, but they're not all 7 in every area. So what I do, I dig out a clump of grass and turn it upside down and put it in the brooder, like around, I don't know, after they started eating and, it's established that they're happy little chicks, after the first few days. And that actually apparently acts like a natural immunization. I have, to my knowledge, never in 13 years lost a chick to coccidia or chicken. That's all I have to say for that. So again, that effect, the protective effect of deep litter, you're not allowed to clean it completely. You have to leave like 6 inches of the old stuff in there. And do not expect it to work early on. They established that it takes 6 months for the beneficial effects to start getting established. And by that is the beneficial microenvironment. Now, they did find that there were more worm eggs in the deep litter compared to like if you do it fresh every 6 months. However, it did not affect any parameters of the chickens in a negative way in terms of health or growth and weight. So they concluded that yes, there are more worm eggs, and they assumed there might be a different worm load, but the birds weren't getting sick from it. It didn't affect them negatively. What else? Now, the negative of deep litter is, for me, it's dusty in the summer. In the winter, it's not dusty at all. I mean, there is no dust. In the summer, it tends to be dusty, and I need to add moisture because it's so dry here, because it doesn't rain for 6 months and it's like really hot. But that just means I take a hose and I spray down the entire coop a couple of times in the summer. Also, if it rains at the wrong time in the winter, sometimes these days I don't have enough dry leaves, which means I have to use straw, which I prefer not to. This never used to be the case before the electric company didn't kill two enormous, humongous, the biggest black oaks, which gave the best and most voluminous leaves of all. So if you don't have leaves, then your second best bet for deep litter would probably be chopped straw or straw. Now I show you something. This is what's left of my bags of leaves. I store them there. That's not many. I'm hoping for a few dry days so I can get some more bags of leaves. And you can see that in the run, it's just like it used to be open. And so it doesn't stay dry. So it's a no-no for sand. Sand has to stay dry. What, you guys, you voluntarily went back in here already? Well, okay then. One thing, rodents. If you are in the country, and I don't know about city, if you're in the country, you have deep litter, and your coops are open all day into the evening, and you don't have, you're going to get rodents, and they like to hide in the deep litter. And so that's why I had to get a coop cat, which you saw. Where'd she go? Anyway. And, I had to like really close all the holes everywhere. It's I can only tell you, close all the holes when you build your coop, and make sure you can't have too much ventilation. Okay, you can have too little, but you cannot have too much ventilation. Okay. So for me, taking the results of that study and the results of my own chicken's health, which is no coccidia as far as I know in over 12 years, and the most chickens I ever had was 86 at one time. And also, I don't have to treat for mycoplasma. Haven't seen a worm since the first, I think at 8 months. 8 months after I started, I saw a few worms in chicken poop, and ever since then, I have not seen a worm in any poop anywhere. So I don't treat for worms. I don't seem to have to. And it bears well with those studies too, that even though the worm eggs are increased in the old litter versus fresh litter, the chicken's health was not adversely affected. So I don't worry about it. And so far, so good. Keeping fingers crossed. All right. Okay, so in almost 13 years, I have never cleaned out my run or any of the coops. That's my rooster coop. And there, and there, and there. And it's definitely rustic, but I think taking out litter for gardening is enough work already. But also knowing that at least 6 inches of the deep litter should stay for maximum health benefits, that works for me. It just works. Now, if you have a small coop and you do deep litter, you must have good ventilation, which is always really a must for the respiratory symptoms. To protect the chicken's respiratory tract. So good ventilation is a must. And you do need to have, you do need to add brown stuff. The deep litter shouldn't be wet. There is like just a little bit of moisture that's needed for it to be active. But you see this run, it used to be open, but I had to put plastic over it because it got too wet. And yes, I lost some of the ventilation for the summer, but it just got too wet. And you can see the color here is a lot wetter, and over there it's completely still open. That is open, so you can see it's much darker. And this is kind of a little bit on the moist side, and inside the coop it's just dry. So I've had these chickens for a little over 12 and a half years. And to my knowledge, there has not ever been a case of coccidiosis. I have not had any respiratory illnesses that I needed to treat, except one 11-year-old chicken that was breathing heavy and had some of those bubbles in the eyes. And I did treat her with CHAMBERLIN and terramycin, and it helped her. But she was at the end of her life, and I just didn't want her to suffer. But other than that, no respiratory illnesses. Even though Mycoplasma is around, I know it. And coccidia is everywhere too, but I just have not lost a chick in 12 years, that to my knowledge, chick or chicken. So, okay, to recap, since the other video is so long, I would not care to have sand in my coop because it can't get wet. It's a hassle to get the right kind of sand, and it's heavy. And then every year you have to take it all out and let it sit and put in some new and then sterilize it before you put it back in. I wouldn't want to do that, but I know I would never clean it every day to get all the poop out. I hate using dropping boards. Sand cannot be used in... I hear ya. Sand cannot be used in the compost. Leaves are free. They work really well. If I have it, sometimes I put wood chips in. Sometimes some organic straw if I have it. And I don't ever have to clean it. I just take stuff out. Sometimes if I feel there's like too much poop in one area, I just put leaves over the top of it, or I just take it out and put it in the compost pile. But that's actually pretty rare. Sand also cannot be used on dirt floor. You have to have a wooden floor with linoleum or tile or something over it. I like how soft and also how warm the deep litter is. At least when the deep litter is active and working. It's not always as warm as the other day, but particularly in the summer, if it's too dry and the litter isn't all that active, it doesn't end up being warm. Also, my chickens don't seem to want to eat the leaves. I've heard of crop impactions with sand. That just doesn't happen with leaves, I guess. But my chickens also don't eat straw, and some chickens have that issue too, so I don't know what the deal is with that. Hi guys. Have you started laying yet or not? A door to the ground, or more or less to the ground, doesn't work with deep litter. You need at least a foot off the ground. Okay, so let's talk about smell. If litter is handled properly, let me try that again. Somebody's announcing their egg. If litter is handled properly, it does not smell, the deep litter. However, this is open to the environment, and it goes right here. And I also have some leakage here over the run. And when that gets too wet, and compacted, it stinks. And that's because the anaerobic bacteria, which are bacteria that work without oxygen, they produce gases and it smells bad. What I do in that case, and it happens maybe once a year, you can use like any fork. What I do is put air in it, and that stops the smelling, okay? The other thing, after that, you put more dry material on it. Now, I'm just showing you it's not because it's not smelling. But earlier, when we had like 10 inches of rain in 2 days, it just ended up being too wet, too fast. And since I walk here all the time. So yeah, it can smell if anaerobic bacteria start working in the compressed ground. And so you need to fluff it up. And obviously, it needs to stay more dry after that. And that just means you add stuff to it. You add brown. You add more leaves to it. Like this is pretty pesky Johnson grass. And actually the wild birds eat most of the seeds. And the seeds they don't eat, the chickens will eat. But this stuff, I cut that. I cut that at the bottom and just throw it in the run right there. I also do that with some of the other really tall grasses that we have. Once they're dry, I cut them and put them in the run. That's a summer thing. And in the summer I don't have leaves. You know, like for example this. The birds are definitely done with it. And I'm going to cut that and it's going to go in the run. I mean, nothing gets wasted. The birds eat the seeds and this becomes my straw. Okay, so that's a rather long video. Thank you for watching. I hope that helped you decide what is right for you. And no matter what you do, your chickens are going to be loved and cared for and be better off than literally billions of commercial birds, either layers or broilers. So you're going to be fine. You'll find what works for you. And I just made this long video showing you what works for me and why. And so good luck and have a great day, no matter what happens. Bye-bye.